This car differs from other cars in many features.
$1.85 million.
Hey everybody, it's Preston Tucker Speed Shop here again. Mike and Sean Tucker, great-grandsons of Preston Tucker, and Mark Lieberman, owner of Nostalgic Motoring. We are here at the Savoy Museum today. Absolutely amazing facility. We've been spending a few days here. We're going to put out another video on the museum itself, so make sure you check that out. But we have been absolutely blown away by the scale and just the quality of the work that they did with this museum. So absolutely wonderful. We're going to talk a little bit about Tucker 44 today. A special car to all of us here, found by Mark, which we'll talk about, and then sold to Howard and Russ Kroplick. Howard couldn't be here this weekend, but you know, we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for believing in us for this project. Project was really kind of spearheaded by Rob and Bob Ida. Rob had the concept of, hey, maybe we put this team together to do a very high quality and accurate restoration of this car. Rob also couldn't be here, but you know, just a huge part of making 1044 what it was. So I'm going to hand it over to Mark here, and he's going to talk about when he found the search for this car, all of the diligence he did to buy it, and then the things that happened after that.
Well, this car was an amazing find. It had actually been owned by this individual since the early 70s, and when Skip had purchased the car, the vehicle was in good repair, although it had some mechanical issues. He had some transmission difficulties with it. So he only managed to put about 15 miles on the car. He had parked it in his garage, attempting to do some repairs to it, but never really getting around to getting that fully sorted out. So he parked it in his barn, and there it sat for the better part of 35 years. Well, fast forward to 2016, after some diligent work with him over the previous few years, I managed to talk him into selling me the car, and we brought this vehicle to my facility in Auburn Hills, Michigan, and woke it up. We had fired it up and drove it for the first time in all of those years, and it was really exciting to wake that car up and then to recommission it for the opportunity to put it in the hands of the next person who was going to take it to a fully restored level. There enters the picture of Howard Kroplick, who purchased it, and then commissioned the dream team here to recommission and fully restore the car.
So we'll talk a little bit about the restoration. We do happen to have a really nice feature here at the Savoy where we can walk around the car and show you. I can actually spin it. So I'll show you how it moves here. We can go back and forth and turn the car. So last night when we were doing our talk, it was really nice to have this feature, because as we were talking about different things, we could go around the car. So kudos to the Savoy Museum for putting that in. The restoration of 1044 started with really an idea in Rob Ida's head about you know, how do we take a car and make it the most high quality and accurate restoration possible. So Rob really, you know, put the team together based on that. He had, you know, luckily enough, he's one of the best metal fabricators in the world, so he certainly was able to execute a lot of the things that needed to be done on the body of this car. Tuckers are very challenging because the body panels are made on prototype dies, and there's significant amounts of lead in these cars, so that's quite the challenge. And then when you're restoring a Tucker, the accuracy of a single car in particular is very important. All right, we're going to give you a little tour of Tucker 1044. So a little information about the car first. This car was built on November 4th of 1948, making it one of the last 8 cars assembled by volunteer employees. This car is Andante green, so you can see this very stunning green color here. That was one of 6 colors that Tucker used. 8 cars were painted this color, so 8 of the 51 that were produced. And 6 of those cars had green interior like this one does. So green is the rarest color of interior, so it made the restoration a little bit more difficult. I'm going to have Mark pop the hood here and talk a little bit about some of the details of the trunk, even though we called that a hood. All right, so once we open this up here, we see the Tucker luggage. So this is one time we can show you how it actually was designed to be in the car. There's 2 versions of the luggage that Howard's got here. These are both the hard side luggage, but this is the dark version. and then the light version. Another note in here, so we did a lot of research on what was the finish within this engine compartment, I did it, this trunk supposed to be. It's actually flocking, so there's a blueprint that we found. Flocking is like the material that you would find on the inside of a jewelry box, and we found that on the sides of the trunk on later cars, based on some information on the blueprints, that we think these were flocked with carpet in the bottom. So that's how we finished off the trunk in this car.
If you take a look also, I'll point out the spare tire mounts here in the very front, but there's no jack and there's no tire iron and there's really no way to install it, so it's little more than an ornament at this point in time, but they did have it. Interesting, I think that at one point in time, Mike, you also pointed out to me that there is a blueprint for a jack.
There is a blueprint, but strangely enough,
they never got around
never
to
got one, right? So you had the materials you needed, but you were still stuck by the side of the road in your Tucker, right?
Oh, well.
So because we were at the Savoy Museum, I can actually do this really cool thing and pan around to the other side of the car here. So I'm going to do that. This facility is absolutely amazing. This gallery, they've built in, the ability to have a car on a turntable. So we're able to turn it and show you the interior here. So Mark's going to open it up. So as I noted earlier, this car, one of 6 that has a green broadcloth interior. Made it a bit challenging, but we got lucky as part of the restoration process when we pulled out some of the old brown interior and pulled off that fabric. Underneath was original green broadcloth.
That was groovy 1970s crushed velour.
Hey, some people liked it, but it was time for it to go. So not only was that process used for the broadcloth, but you see here the windlace, which is used in various parts of the car, the rear deck vinyl, and the vinyl here that was used on the padded dash as well as the doors. All of those were recreated based on original samples either from that we pulled out of 1044, other samples that Mark had from other cars, or pictures, things like that. So we think we got this interior pretty close to exactly perfect.
Mike, I'll also point out that this was the first car with a padded dashboard that actually surrounds the vehicle in order to better protect the passengers. Other unique features on the car included the lollipop switches, aviation inspired. Since they were in a plant that built the B-52 bomber, they pulled a lot of aviation-inspired architecture as well, and those switches were among those. Another unique feature of this was the compact dashboard. They put this whole unit together so you could look at all your instruments in just a glance. And a lot of work went into reproducing that plastic surround. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, Sean, who's my brother, is very good with modern engineering techniques, I'll say. So the dashboard in this car, Sean was able, so although we did have the original, they are not known for surviving well. So it was cracked, there was many condition issues, so Sean was able to take that dash out, kind of glue it back together like a puzzle, and then made a silicone mold of that original dash. So he got the plastic piece that came out, and then hours and hours of sanding after that, then had to be back painted and things like that. So there's probably more work in that dashboard from Sean's perspective than any other plastic part that we had to recreate on this car.
It looks incredible. One of the other features that I'd like to point out is the safety crash compartment. This was a unique feature to Tucker, a little bit controversial, but nevertheless, certainly not something that you saw in any other vehicle. On the passenger side, you have this large open area. And in this area, it was designed that you would dive into it to seek harbor in a pending crash. There are a couple of promotional photographs of people actually crouched in that area.
Yes.
I'm not sure that it really would have worked out that well in practicality, though.
So if I were in my early days, I would jump in there and try to show you how it works. I think I'd probably get hurt on the way in or the way out because I'm not as nimble as I used to be. But certainly these days it seems almost a little bit comical that it was there. But remember, back in '48, there was not a discussion around safety at all. So the idea that this may work actually was feasible back then.
It was crazy, but there it is. Another thing, and maybe the last item that I'll point out on this interior, is the reversible seats. You could take the seats from the front and put them in the rear, and vice versa, in order to even the wear out between the front and rear, so you would preserve the longevity of the upholstery.
Yeah, I mean, the details that they thought about with this car, just we keep finding them, right? It's just amazing that in that amount of time they were able to do all of these things.
Let's have a look in the engine bay.
All right. So, there we go. All right, so this is the engine of Tucker 44. So Tucker engines are a 335 cubic inch flat six, actually converted Franklin engine. So these engines started out as air-cooled, and through a bunch of work that I'll let Mark describe in a minute here, they were converted to water-cooled.
Right, they added water jackets for the cylinders, and the cylinder heads, added an intake manifold and plenum, and then added the distributor instead of having the magneto set up. So the interesting thing that was done with these engines, while they were originally intended to power a helicopter and spin at 2,600 RPMs all day long, they were still well adapted to go into this automobile. Mm-hmm. An amazing thing with this was that even though this was one of the very few rear engine vehicles and very few aluminum engine cars, it still powered this almost 19-foot long four-door sedan to 130 miles an hour. Wow. Incredibly fast for the time.
Right. So the restoration of 44, you know, back here was also as an intent on detail as the rest of the car. You can see here a recreation of the original way that the deck lid would have been, all the engine finishes and things like that. We tried to replicate as best we could. I'm gonna turn the car again here to the, let's see if I can get this right. There we go, to the left side. Talk a little bit about some of the other overall details of 44. So if I shut these doors, there's a picture of 44 that we show often at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, and that picture has the car with black wall tires. Through a pretty extensive amount of research back with the blueprints again, we believe this car in particular was delivered from the factory with black walls. It wasn't the only one with black walls, but funny story is that the owner Howard certainly prefers the white walls, so Howard wins in that argument every time, and we do think it certainly presents better overall with the white walls. So that's the condition you see it in here, but the black walls were the originals.
Just as a quick comparison, while we're at the side view of the car, some of the other differences that you'd see between early and late cars are the front-mounted fuel tank for the later vehicles. Early cars had the fuel filler behind that air intake grill. You'd also see a difference in wheelbase. They actually extended the wheelbase with the later cars. So you'll note that the rear wheel is towards the rear portion of the fender well, and you'll notice the early cars are towards the front portion. Two little distinguishing features that you'd see. Other minor things involve the parking lights and other bits.
Sure. And we'll probably do a whole video on the restoration of this car later, but the work that went into making this car as accurate as possible from a body perspective was really the magic of Rob Ida. So we'll probably talk about that in the future. I do want to kind of wrap this up with again thanking the team that we got together for this, and in particular the owner Howard. Howard is, you know, absolutely wonderful with loaning his car to the Savoy Museum, you know, having the faith in us to do this project along with Rob Ida and all the different people that were involved. So, you know, this car has really changed our life for the better. But we'll wrap it up today on that, and certainly do things with this in the future. But I do want to thank the Savoy Museum as well for hosting us. This event was absolutely awesome. This facility, if you have not been here, you absolutely have to visit. It is. You know, we expected a lot when we came here based on the videos online, but I mean the scale and the quality of this place is absolutely wonderful.
Let's do this. Let's close it up and go for a drive.
I like that idea. Let's go.
All right.